Keeping a good notebook is one of the most important skills as a student of chemistry. Keeping a good notebook is also important in many professions such as a researcher or a doctor, though. Learning how to take good notes in a chemistry notebook is not something that everybody knows right away. It takes practice and thoroughness in order to develop it as a good skill. And so this video aims to teach some of the important principles of keeping a good lab notebook for Chemistry 216. Filling out basic information of each experiment's lab notebook is very important so that you keep it organized and in one place. So it's important to make sure you number each experiment number, that you give it a title so you know which one you're referring to and what the data is for, the date of the experiment, your name so that when you turn it in or if it gets lost someone can return it to you, and also of course your GSI so that in case it gets lost among all the other lab sections they know which GSI to give it to for grading purposes.
The lab notebook is a permanent documented and primary record of lab observations. It should be kept in a bound notebook without any pages torn out, and it's better with carbon copies so one can be handed to your GSI. And changes should not be made by erasing with pen or whiteout, and they should be made by drawing a single line through an entry in a way that can still be read and placing the new entry nearby. If a primary datum has been changed, an explanation should be provided, such as like balance drifted, misread scale, or reading error. But an explanation isn't necessary if a calculation or discussion has changed. The section to be deleted is simply removed by drawing a neat X through it for calculation and discussion.
Once you have your basic information written down, it is important to do a pre-lab or a little research before you actually do the lab into your procedure and its purpose before you actually conduct the experiment. And there are 4 important parts of a pre-lab, the first being the purpose. So you want to make sure you know what the goal of this experiment is or what you're trying to figure out. The second thing is the materials that you're going to be using in this experiment, so beakers and thermometers, protection equipment, things like this. The third thing you want to know is the chemicals and how hazardous they are, so what to do if you were to get some on your skin or your hands, how long you have to wash it for, if you have to have a more serious response. And the fourth thing, just a basic or overview of the methods you're going to be using or your procedure, so just so you have an idea of what you're going to be doing so you're not lost when you're actually doing the experiment. Another important aspect of the lab before you actually do the experiment is something called reagent tables. For example, if you have to do stoichiometry to figure out how much of a chemical you need to complete a reaction, or something like finding out the molarity of the solutions you're going to need, you want to make sure that you do these sort of things before you actually go to the lab. So, for example, right here, doing the stoichiometry of how much of an iodine derivative you need for electrophilic substitution is found before the actual lab was conducted, because you don't want to be looking up things such as molar mass and density of reactions before you're actually in the experiment, so you can use all 3 hours of the lab towards the experiment rather than trying to figure these things out.
And finally, make sure to record your data as you go and analyze it in a neat and orderly fashion while you're actually working on the lab procedure.
For the final discussion of the data, make sure that you refer back to the information and observations that you have collected during the actual experiment, and then discuss them in a nice and orderly fashion as shown.
And that is how you keep a good lab notebook.